Welcome to Noise and Nonsense, the podcast where the volume is always cranked to 11 and the conversation is sometimes, well, nonsensical. We're here to celebrate the loud, the weird, and the unapologetically noisy. Whether it's punk, rock, metal, shoegaze, or whatever else may be rattling your speakers. I'm Stefanie.
And I'm David. And this week we are welcoming Bleeder into the studio.
Take a shot of feminoia, 'cause you'll never be a boya with that funny little thing you call spine. So go ahead and suck it to me like you knew I wish you blew me. Go ahead and pour some sugar on the rind. But baby, don't you think it's funny when you try to be her bunny that you never seem to want to touch your chest? So go and move out to the city, go and grow a rack of titties. If you want to win, you'll figure out the rest. So change your clothes, change your hair, change your body, change your mind. Make clothing seem better if you're happy all the time. Let's both take a drink, spit your teeth out in the sink. Shave your legs, get a tan, feel natural, or be a man.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Howdy.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, okay, sure. Hi, I'm Rose. I'm the guitarist in Bleeder. My pronouns are she, her, by the way. Hi.
And I'm Sam. Pronouns are he, they, and I am the bassist for Bleeder.
Wonderful. Triple bassist room.
Nice.
Triple basses.
Can you tell us a little about Bleeder? How did you all get together? How did you meet? How did the band form?
All right, so do you...
I'm going to try because I
Yeah,
had the
do it.
least involvement in the formation of the band. I saw a flyer asking for a drummer, and I asked if you needed a bassist still, and I became the bassist. And then a bunch of weird drama happened, and then the singer changed after like a month, and then we became a band.
Hey, okay, yeah, so... so we are on our third vocalist, not because of drama, just because of life stuff. Our original vocalist is named Mary, and she was an IU journalism student. In her senior year, she decided she wanted to start a punk band. So she just like went and put a bunch of posters all over town, like, I want to start a punk band, smiley face, and like a list of bands that she was into. And yeah, I saw it and I texted her, and we got together and like jammed on acoustic instruments. And that was how it started out. We just got more people who called in or texted through the flyer. And we had another vocalist for a little bit who didn't work out. And then we ended up with Sam on bass, me on guitar, Mary doing vocals and like rhythm guitar and stuff like that, and Sophie on drums. And that was locked in for a while. And then Mary graduated from IU and moved to New York City. So we got a new vocalist, Bonnabelle, who sounds absolutely awesome. And we miss Mary so much, but we couldn't be happier with how the lineup of the band has turned out right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. So on your new EP, who is the lineup on the EP? Who's the vocalist?
Yeah, so I can do it.
So for this EP, the main vocalist is Bonnabelle, though for two of the tracks, one of the tracks, Proud, is Rose singing as the main vocalist, and the song Power Trip has Sophie, who is usually our drummer, as the main vocalist.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Will Sophie play drums and do vocals live, or do you have someone other than them take over that duty?
Occasionally, we've switched off mid-show. So Bonnabelle and Sophie are both drummers and
Okay.
vocalists. So they've swapped off mid-set before. But we've decided to stop doing that. So we just have Bonnie take over vocals for all of our songs, which works fine because she's got a great vocal range.
Yeah.
Nice. So when did you guys like start recording this EP? How long have you been like writing these songs, and who is the main writer?
This is the recording process. This was just a 3-day endeavor. We have our friends Marcus and Chris, who are just getting started opening a studio. I don't think they have a studio name yet, or I'd plug it. But and they invited us over for a weekend, and we just knocked the whole thing out in like a set of live recordings and then some overdubs, and that was the whole recording. As for writing, do you want to?
Writing was interesting because a lot of it was just kind of more freeform. I remember I have contributed very little to the lyrics, which not a complaint, but I remember distinctly like for excuse me, for the first few songs we wrote, I think Degrade Me, which is one of the first tracks on the EP, was the first song we wrote as a band, as an original, and that was our original singer, Mary, who covered most of those lyrics. As for most of the stuff on the EP is a mixture of, well, all four of us mostly. You worked on, Proud was mostly you, I know that. And then Power Trip was Sophie, she wrote and sung that on the recording. And then a majority of it, I want to say, is Bonnabelle.
Yeah, Bonnie is Panic and Praying for You, and some of Spotlight. Spotlight is Bonnie and Sophie.
Cool.
So it's really been a super even mix of us writing and then all of us writing our own instrument parts and collaborating on that.
Yeah,
Nice.
it seems like it's been a true collaboration between everyone adding their little pieces of the puzzle
Yeah.
to complete. How would you all describe your music, and what genre? This is a fun question. We always like to hear, what genre do you consider yourselves?
Genres
Loud.
aren't even real.
Yes, there's too many. It's
Yeah.
just eliminate.
Sam said loud. I call us Riot Girl, post-punk, something in that area. I call us post-punk because we're a little bit more like reverby and like we're not as intensely mood shifting all the time as like a hardcore band or a straightforward punk band. Like we stay in a groove and we have guitar solos and stuff like that. But in terms of the scene we're trying to be in, like we like to think of ourselves as Riot Girl. We're making zines and fighting for feminist and trans feminist politics.
I mean, it's hard for me to identify the genre because, to be completely honest, before joining Bleeder, I've always enjoyed some punk music, but I've never been the deepest into the genre. Like, I grew up on the Beatles, and I've ended up playing in a punk band, which is a little bit funny. I mean, for me, it's difficult to assign a genre, but when we write music, we aren't trying to force ourselves into any specific niche. It's just sort of what's ended up on the EP is the stuff we think best represents us as a band, but we've written music that does not as distinctly fall into that sort of sound or category. So, yeah.
So you brought up the Beatles, but like as an inspiration. So going with the Riot Girl, like kind of genre, like any specific bands that inspired you?
Oh man, well we're called Bleeder, and one of the reasons that we went with the name Bleeder is because I wanted to do the Bleeders and be named after the Breeders, and then there was another band called the Bleeders.
For me personally, last year I was really obsessed with Mannequin Pussy. They had
Nice.
I Got Heaven is definitely wow, I'm awful at speaking. It's probably either my favorite album or at least tied in the top 2 or 3 from last year. So it was just phenomenal. That was a huge source of inspiration for me while writing for our latest EP.
Yeah, Mannequin Pussy, Bikini Kill is we've consistently done a really fun Bikini Kill cover in our sets. The Breeders, let's see. Oh, Gloss, Girls Living Outside Society's Shit is a really great hardcore trans femme band that we've drawn a lot of inspiration from. What's the other one? Anita Velveeta. God, we saw her live here in town a couple months ago, and that was like life-altering.
Sophie begged me to drive her to an Anita Velveeta concert like 2 separate times.
Have the concerts been close?
Debatably.
Chicago?
She really tried to pitch me like driving 3.5 hours to Chicago. And as both the youngest member of the band and one of the only 2 people with a car, it was a hard sell.
You don't want to do the Chicago day trip to see Anita Velveeta?
That's like 8 hours of driving, Rose.
What's your problem, Sam?
Where's your commitment?
What about any outside genres that have any influence on you?
My favorite band is Talking Heads, and
Yeah.
we
Oh,
don't
yeah,
sound like
Talking
them
Heads.
at all.
Yeah.
I mean, not even just necessarily the sound, but the approach to songwriting and lyricism. I
Yeah.
try to take a lot from them. New Wave is probably one of my biggest inspirations, at least personally. I don't know if that's true for the rest of the band. I know that the original flyer I responded to listed inspirational artists as Talking Heads and the Pixies, and we kind of just don't sound like we take any inspiration from them whatsoever.
Well, when Mary and I were the ones writing songs, we both adore Talking Heads too. So that was more of our direction. And now we've gone more in the hardcore.
I was not a complaint in any way. It's more sort of like, I love that we come from a distinct set of backgrounds, and that sort of influenced the music we like to make. And I think moving forward, we've wanted to incorporate a few more new elements in the songs we've been starting to work on.
Yeah.
We've been desperate to try to get elements of electronic into our music.
Yeah. I listen to like everything under the sun. I played in a country band for years. I play Irish music a lot. And I also really like ambient and stuff like that, and I'm always trying to incorporate like the song structures of different kinds of music into stuff I write, and the textural approach to making music and stuff like that.
Yeah, just something I've noticed is even in a couple of your songs from your latest release, real bluesy runs in there. There's like some real, I enjoy that.
We have a blues song that Sam wrote that we didn't get to record.
I really liked that song, and I completely agree with it not being on the EP because it is just so like it. I think you described it as if it was written by just a completely different group of people. It is a very like straight guy sounding music from like 40 years ago, and it would be on an EP of extremely transgender punk music, and it would not have mixed at all.
Yeah.
So we do have a little bit of blues mindset that we just keep under wraps.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your song Panic?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So that's a Bonnabelle song, and I'm trying to remember what the first thing was that song started with. I think it started with the chorus riff, and the narrative of the song is being a trans woman in society and like trying to find love amongst all of these people who find you attractive for like your weirdness and your exotic androgyny and stuff like that. Finding love amongst other trans women and avoiding chasers.
How do you balance your feelings of empowering others and being vulnerable at the same time?
Well, the main reason, this is a difficult one because the only reason I don't have many lyrics contributed on this EP is specifically because it was not my EP to write the lyrics for, in that sense. Like, this is
We've been very transgender with it.
It's never been a problem in any way because I'm honored to be a part of such an important cause, but it's also been in a position of like, I'm not adding my personal voice because this needs to be written from a deeply personal perspective that I don't have. But at least with that one, I know it's coming from a place of Bonnabelle's just genuine, deep frustration with having her lived experience for the last few years.
Yeah. I don't think there's necessarily a conflict between being vulnerable and being empowering. I think by like being vulnerable with each other and showing each other like the pain that we experience, we remember that we're all in this together and we're all fighting kind of the same fights and we're all doing our best.
Have you guys had any going with just, the fact that your songs are, pretty empowering and do speak to the queer crowd in a very awesome way? Have you had any amazing response from a crowd member or anything that has just made you extremely happy or proud for putting this out there for them?
Oh my God. Giving as little detail as possible because it's a pretty personal thing. We have had two different, closeted trans women at shows who we've talked to after the show and who have been like, I'm thinking about transitioning. And Sophie's really good at it, at directing them towards the resources they need. And that's such an amazing feeling. I really hope that we've influenced more people in that way and made people feel comfortable about transitioning.
Nice.
You have anything?
I mean, from my personal position. I have a decent amount of transgender friends. My best friend came out as trans a few years ago. Never an issue for me in any way, but I know of that from the response from my own friends. By far, our biggest and most passionate supporters have been people from the queer community, which isn't surprising in the slightest. Yeah.
You're such a motherfucking man. So now you gotta get your fill up, gotta let out what you built up, but now everyone you meet is up and gone. So meet a guy out in the lobby, tell him you can be his hobby, so you book a room until the crack of dawn. But tell me, do you think it's fair now when you go to lay your head on that he got your head and slams it across the mirror? And you can talk without a hitch, cause he said you're the trending bitch who went and tried to trick him into being queer. So Papa didn't get caught.
How do you all prepare yourselves mentally and physically for performances?
I like sushi.
Is that a performance ritual?
It not so much for this band, but it has been.
I was about to say, have there been sushi events I haven't been invited to before shows? We did Dave's Hot Chicken once. That one was good. But at least for me personally, I used to do School of Rock when I was in high school, which helped me learn how to do live performance stuff, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it was the most authentic experience if you're only performing to a crowd of other people's parents.
Yep.
But I definitely made me more comfortable on stage. For like actual preparation, a lot of it is just familiarity with the set list helps a lot. As long as I'm no longer worried about actually performing it correctly, I started to have a lot more fun on stage. But those first few shows, I was just completely terrified because I wanted to make sure I played it right, and I forgot to look interesting while I was performing.
That's real. I think the thing that like gets me in the performing headspace is literally just like we'll hang out for a couple hours before the shows start, and then we'll do sound check, and then we'll be hanging out for a while longer, and like being with the band and talking about stuff and like being rowdy and running around and jumping and stuff, like getting excited. And then I love being at a show and playing like second or third in the lineup and getting to mosh with some of the other bands first, because that gets you in the headspace.
Nice. Yeah, it's always nice to kind of get comfortable with the venue first and like be comfortable in the surroundings. So speaking of that, do you have any favorite venues here in Bloomington?
I love Rot Spot. I don't know about you.
That's what I was going to say. They're always a ton of fun to play at and perform with. The owners of Rot Spot are also in their own band. It's Inward Heel, I believe, and they're phenomenal.
They're super fun. They'll like Inward Heel will jump on like every other set at Rot Spot, and it's great because the audience all knows that they're gonna play and they're gonna do their set and it's gonna sound awesome, and it always like warms you up to whatever else happens. Yeah, Rot Spot DIY. Rose's Midwest is super, super fun. I love what they're doing, and I love playing in a basement. I love playing in a basement that you have to like descend a little ramp from a parking lot to get into. And
What is it about that descent that you enjoy?
it's an underground venue, man. It feels like it's an underground venue because you have to literally go underground.
Yeah, you're literally.
Definitely helps with the definition, yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all were talking about your first show. Where'd you play your first gig?
Our first show was at a party house venue called the Goop House, and I'm not entirely sure if they're still operating because I think the people who were running it might have just graduated and moved out. Because I haven't.
They only did a couple shows, yeah.
I haven't seen or heard of anything since then. It was a decent show. Like, we performed well. It was just definitely sort of it was a bit of an awkward one since it was our first time performing together as a band in front of an audience.
Oh, it was fun though. We had a bunch of, like, it wasn't the crowd we were expecting. It was mostly like drunk college kids basically, but that was fun because they really got into it. And
it was bizarre because that was the first and only show I've seen where like some of the sorority crowd showed up, which was really not what I expected any of our audience to be, and it has not been since.
it was fun though.
Yeah, nice.
Who's your favorite Bloomington band?
Oh my god. Okay, so I want to say Rearview Rhonda, but
Awkward.
it's I guess we should both say our picks if yours is different from mine, but I absolutely love Rearview Rhonda, and I've loved seeing y'all play. And then my other favorite is definitely Final Girl. they have like a really, really distinct like no wave goth rock aesthetic and sound, and it's so much fun just to like have a goth band here in town that you can count on to have that theatrics and that kind of like anxious energy.
Final Girl is probably, they're easily in my top 3. I mean, I'm not going to directly copy Rose's answers, but they're always so much fun to watch perform. As for my actual, like probably my favorite local band, I'm going to say Early Grey.
I should have said Early Grey. Yeah, sorry.
Well, you're a little late for that, bro. Not only are we just, I mean, we're actually just personal friends with that band, but it's because when I watch them perform, it just makes me, every time I watch them perform, I go home and think about how I need to become a better musician. Like, I'm friends with Darby, their bassist. She's extremely talented, and every time I watch her play, I go, God, I should have thought of that. Like, every single riff she plays is awesome. They're incredibly talented, and I love watching them perform.
We've got a lot of great girl bassist vocalists in town. Yeah, Early Grey, we played with them at our first show at Goop House, and yeah, they've been like, I feel like they've been like our sister band as we've both like developed as musicians separately, and that's been really fun.
I'm going to piggyback off something you said, Sam. What is a song that y'all have heard where you're like, I wish I wrote that? I wish that was mine.
I already mentioned that I really liked Mannequin Pussy in their most recent album. The title song of that album, I Got Heaven, gave me the most intense, like, it was both easily one of my favorite songs of the year and also just, God, I really wish I was the person that came up with that.
Yeah.
Because it is both, like, it does thematically things that are kind of similar to what we do, like a really strong, aggressive Riot Girl message, but so, like, I really can't describe it. It has like an almost David Bowie-esque vibe to it, in addition to it being punk, in a way that just it's flawless to me, and I'm extremely jealous of that song and just the band as a whole.
So textured. I didn't know punk music could have so much like ambiance to it. That's a good one. Yeah. Let's see. There are so many good songs in this world. Puppy by Glass Beach has the best guitar riff I've ever heard on anything, and I wish I came up with that. I think more than anything in the world.
So, going with some of your favorite sounds and stuff like that and your favorite music, is there any specific gear that you guys use to pull out any of those sounds? Like, do you have any pedals that you love, or?
All right, I'll drop my gear opinions. I'm obsessed with delay. I'm obsessed with guitar delay. That's always been my thing. I have 3 delay pedals. My favorite is the Chase Habit, or Habit by Chase Bliss. I think it's Habit by Chase Bliss, which is like a delay pedal that you can modulate the delay frequency in lots of interesting ways, and then also have it feed back on itself in lots of interesting ways at different intervals and stuff like that. And a lot of the like the screechy delay guitar lines that I'll do on the recordings are just coming out of that, and it's just like one pedal that's producing all of that weird sound.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I would imagine that it was, more than multiple pedals to create that sound, because it's pretty textured.
Yeah. Well, we've got multiple different delay pedals for different parts, but yeah, I will just create one thick texture with that one pedal. It goes crazy. I think, Sam, your Paul McCartney bass is pretty iconic too.
I don't actually have that anymore.
Wait, you don't have it anymore?
I had to return it.
Oh.
I got a new, so for the majority of Bleeder, up until literally this Christmas, I was rocking a Epiphone viola bass that's just designed as a copy of Paul McCartney's bass guitar. And it sounded great. I mean, I do love that guitar. It's just, I always thought it was a little comical to be having that in a punk band.
Yeah.
Like a hollow body wooden bass.
Yeah, I mean, no ill will towards it. I loved it a lot, but I recently just replaced it with a Squier model. I can't think of the exact one off the top of my head, but something a little more standard looking. But the sound on that one is still also really high quality. In terms of actual pedals, again, I didn't actually have any I didn't have any pedals until very recently. The only one I've gotten recently that I really have been enjoying, and is definitely a huge part of our sound moving forward, I got the Lizard King pedal by Electro Harmonics, and it is phenomenal for bass. it's just a lot of really, really solid crunch and reverb that it adds a lot of punch to our sound.
Octave fuzz too.
See, I don't remember a lot of music terms, and that's why I'm really happy to have Rose in this band.
Yeah.
And did you use that pedal on Proud? I remember, I think that's the one that's pretty fuzzy
Oh,
on
that's
the bass
just-
tone.
Yeah, here.
So for recording that EP, actually, I just had a clean tone, and most of the sound changes were done by the audio engineers who did a phenomenal job. Most of that was all on them because I think usually when we play that loud, I just have a clean tone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the bass tone on the EP is just going through a really nice bass cab into good microphones.
Did you both start on your respective instruments?
I was a really mediocre guitarist until they said they didn't have somebody playing bass. And that's what has made me a bass player.
That's how we
Now
most
you're
of
really
us start.
good.
Yeah.
Like now at this point, I am just not. I'm like barely competent at a regular guitar anymore. But I've gotten much more comfortable playing bass, and I'm really happy with it. And Rose has been playing every string instrument I can think of at better than any other person I know in my life. So
Dude, I think I'm a better banjo player than guitarist. I'm gonna be real.
Oh, that's cool.
I played piano when I was a little kid, and then I played saxophone. But my first string instrument was actually bass, and I played bass for a while.
you did
And
not tell me that before.
I played bass for a while, and I enjoyed it, but it's hard to just do your own music by yourself on bass, so I ended up switching to guitar. And I've just stuck with guitar because, I can coax the most different sounds out of a guitar, out of anything.
I'm going to have to ask what style of banjo? Like, do you play clawhammer or?
Oh, I play
Okay.
clawhammer, yeah.
Nice, nice.
I play, Appalachian old-time clawhammer banjo. I've been busking on the streets for a really long time. That's, my main source of income in the summer.
Nice.
So you might run into me playing banjo.
I will be
around town.
looking for you.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'm going to come looking for you now. That's awesome. I've always admired banjo because it just looks incredibly difficult. And just something about the sound of the banjo is,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like a primal instrument or something.
It's like plunky and fast decay, but then there's so many notes happening at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes up for it. That's what I love.
What was your first guitar? What's your current guitar?
So my first electric guitar, I absolutely adore still, but I can't play it anymore. My first electric guitar was a knockoff Honda brand Les Paul. It says Honda on
That's
it.
awesome.
I got it at the antique market here in town. It was just a used guitar, and the pickups are pretty shot. They've just gotten worse and worse the whole time I've had it. So finally, over the summer, I upgraded, and I just got myself a really nice, solid Fender Strat. And everything we've done since then has just been Fender Strat. That's the love of my life right now.
I was so happy when you replaced that stupid Honda guitar.
Hey, listen.
You would just screech sometimes,
Yeah.
right? You would just start making really loud, jarring noises randomly.
I swear it's not me. It's the pickups. I swear.
My first bass was that Epiphone viola bass. My first guitar was, I can't remember the brand because it was some cheap brand. I was 10 years old. It was a 3/4 scale black guitar, and all I remember was that it was named Laguna. And it was
Laguna.
bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Laguna.
But for bass, I've really only had the two models I've already talked about. So not much interesting developments there.
I do. I remember you on stage. I saw you all back in like October with
Yeah.
Steph, and I remember seeing the viola bass. I was like, "Oh shit,
Yeah.
is that a Hofner?"
I wish.
That's like-
It
It's
was,
iconic.
But it stood, like you said, it stood out because it was like it doesn't fit the genre, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the tone. But yeah.
I did not replace it just because it looked bad. I still really like that bass. It's more of like what it did really well was not something particularly relevant to Bleeder's sound. Like I could do a phenomenal sort of with flat wound strings. I could do like the prettiest clean tone in the world to a song that had no place in anything in Bleeder's discography. So
Well, what is something outside of music that you enjoy doing?
Collectively or individually? Let's see.
I guess maybe let's say individually and as a band. Do you guys do much together as a band?
Mostly just crafts and stuff like that.
we do. We've lately been working on the zine we're trying to release with the physical versions of Subcutaneous, and that's been a lot of fun. Sophie, our drummer, she's really good at just arts and crafts and sort of scrapbooking stuff. She's been really passionate about it and driving most of the work on it. So it's been looking really good so far.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've been having a lot of fun making merch and making zines and printing stuff in different formats. I also have a typewriter. I've been getting really into like writing poetry and stuff on my typewriter, and we've been using that for the zine. Yeah, outside of music-related stuff, I go hiking for like 3 hours a day. That's my meditation process.
Nice.
An hour to 3 hours, less in the winter. Don't look at me like
I was
that.
about to say, I knew you really like nature, but I could not imagine 3-hour hikes on the daily. That's
Hey, Sam,
insane to me.
literally in the summer, I will go out for 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Outside is good.
For me, individually, I'm really big into movies. That's actually why I'm in Bloomington in the first place. I'm a cinematic arts student at IU, and just huge fan of movies, television. Play a lot of video games, and lately I've been trying to work on my own sort of short films, but that's been a lot harder to write.
Was there a particular artist or performer when you were younger that made you want to be a musician, that you heard or saw and you're like, that's what I want to do?
It's totally outside of our wheelhouse, but Haley Hendricks for me is like my biggest inspiration as a performer specifically. I love her cadence on stage and like finger picking on electric guitar. It's a really interesting texture and sound. And yeah, also Sungazer jazz fusion band. The bassist was a huge inspiration for me. He has like a YouTube channel that I was obsessed with around like COVID time. And that's part of the reason I played bass a lot more then.
For me, I mean, I already mentioned I grew up on the Beatles a lot, but I wouldn't say that they're my like direct inspiration for being a musician. It was probably David Bowie, because for me, that was the moment when you could go from being a musician to being a performer. It's that sort of gap between like, both of these things are incredibly important art forms, but there's very much a different approach between creating something in a studio environment and performing to a crowd. It's like just almost different types of artistry that you have to practice and perform. It's always been extremely impressive to me. So.
Yeah. You know what? We got to talk about David Byrne though too, because like we were talking about Talking Heads, I adore David Byrne's stage presence. He'll get on stage and like do a little octopus dance for 5 minutes during a song. And yeah, huge inspiration of mine.
We kept doing this bit and we never executed it, and I still think we should do it, where since I'm kind of the odd man out in this group, and by the most literal definition actually, that we're going to get me a Mormon missionary outfit and have me wear that during the show and just say they got me on like Craigslist.
That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
Very like David Byrne big suit kind of vibe.
How has the reception of your release gone of Subcutaneous?
I think it's been really great. The thing that's made me the happiest is like all of these local bands that we've played with and that we're friends with that are all like sharing the news of our release on their Instagram stories and with all their friends. And like, because we haven't so much had like direct social media traction as we've had like word of mouth. And I think that's really exciting.
For me, the biggest part hasn't been just support from, my own friends or family and other people that might just like our music, but it's just that support from the other Bloomington bands. Specifically, that's been really flattering for us. River, the lead singer for Hey Calypso, I think she posted some of our lyrics as like part of her story for a few days, and I was really flattered by that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And as of recording, it just released 2 days ago.
But yeah, you have your album releases February 7th. Is that correct?
Our album release show, yeah.
Yeah. So the album release show. So
Yep.
yeah.
And we're really excited about that because we're playing with like two of our favorite bands in Bloomington, Hey Calypso and Early Grey, aforementioned.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to get to see what the word of mouth reception looks like when everybody's all in one room in
Yeah.
Rot Spot.
Okay, that's what I was getting ready to ask. So it's going to be at Rot Spot.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're really. Sorry. We're also just really excited because this is the first time we've really orchestrated a show on our own before.
Mm-hmm.
We've never really played a show where there's like a distinct headliner, but this show is specifically about the release of Subcutaneous and all of this. So I'm just very excited to see how people are going to respond in person.
Showmanship up to 11.
Definitely.
So that is February 7th. What time do doors open?
February 7th at Rot Spot DIY, doors at 7:30, music at 8, I do believe. $7, pay what you can.
Cool.
That's all the information.
Nice. So do you want to give our listeners here, help them know where to find you? Let's see, what's your Instagram?
Instagram
is bleeder .bloomington or bleeder_Bloomington.
Let me double check on that. I think I got that memorized by now. It's bleeder_Bloomington.
Bleeder_Bloomington.
And on Spotify, it's Bleeder, I believe in all caps with an exclamation point at the end. And we are also on, I believe it's Bandcamp, right?
Yep.
Bandcamp.
Oh, we're on Bandcamp, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Spotify, all those good places. Our main social media presence is on Instagram, and that's where you can find like us making jokes about the merch that we've made and giving updates to our recording and stuff like that, and having fun as a band.
And you also have a link on your Instagram, right? That goes to all your
Yep, got a link tree
streaming.
that goes everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Very glad we ended up not making a TikTok account because that did not pan out very well recently.
No. Well, great. Rose and Sam, thank you very much for coming in and chatting about the band and your new album. You can find Bleeder on Instagram, Spotify, Bandcamp. Anything else you'd like to let people know?
Thanks so much for having us. Come to our show and mosh. If you don't mosh, you'll get kicked out. I don't know. That's not
we can hold you to that. It's like written in the fine print on the poster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you
It's been
guys
an honor.
taking
Thank
the time to come out. And it's exciting to be the first guests on Noise and Nonsense.
This is delightful. Thanks so much, y'all, for promoting local bands. I feel so passionate about this local scene, and I'm really glad that you're working to get like more attention on it. So, yeah, thanks.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Noise and Nonsense Podcast. If you are interested in being a guest, email us at noiseandnonsencepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.